All right then, welcome back to the Foxhole. AfterShoX 042. Season 2, Episode 10. Coming at you right now. All right. As always, I'd like to welcome you back for another installment. Like, subscribe, FTIN FX Media's YouTube channel. Really could use your help there with the algorithm. Tell your friends to do so. Please help a brother out. All the engagement we can ever get. And we'll promise to keep putting out entertaining content a couple of times a week whenever we can. Hell yeah. Alrighty. Let me see, is there anything else I gotta say? Yeah, obviously check out episode 312 of Fox Trading in a Foxhole. It'll be dropping later this week. The scene whenever SJ gets down, whenever, all that stuff. But we're always pumping the content out here in the Foxhole. So let's get to it, shall we? AfterShoX 042. James Worthy in the house. Well, you know how all the gamers and other fun people, how they play, 2K, and I forget what EA's game is. But it's like, who needs those games when the playoffs actually deliver? I think so far they have pretty much been very entertaining. I think it's fair to say they probably have delivered in a decent way. I mean, there's all kinds of shenanigans that's going on with the league, and we'll be talking about that throughout the week between this and episode 312 of Fox Trading in a Foxhole. But let's start off with the T-Wolves and the Nuggets. As we said going into it, it is a shame that these two teams had to meet in the first round. But when you're deep, like the Western Conference has been, for as long as we can remember, it seems, these things are going to happen. And this is, a wild series. It's only going to get better. There's so much intrigue here. Mr. McDaniels selling the Wolf tickets. The rumble that happened when the Nugs were down 3-1. Their backs against the wall. And people are asking, did Joker do that to fire up his team, or was he just that pissed because the Timberwolves at that point were punking the Nuggets out? Of course, Ant-Man got hurt. DiVincenzo blew out his Achilles. And now, I really don't like to agree with Stephen A. ever. He may be onto something that if they do not win the next game, they could be in deep doo-doo. But once again, this has been fascinating. The physicality, we've seen some great basketball, we've seen some head-scratching ball in this particular series. And, more of it throughout these playoffs, please. The flip side of this would be the Cavaliers. And I've been hard on them in the post-LeBron era, especially now that they have Donovan Mitchell, James Harden. And they're like the regular season. I guess because I said insult to Peyton Manning whenever I bring him up in terms, because Peyton had some money in his wallet. So I'm going to have to think here for a second, which is a good comparison, or is maybe the Cavaliers just coming up with a thing of their own, especially in this era of just like, okay, we can get some big wins in the regular season, and we can get you all talking about us, then come into the playoffs and just lay a pancake. And the fact that the Raptors, what was the last time you thought about Brandon Ingram? B.I., baby. The fact that ragtag squad has you scratching your head, and I'm talking about you Cavaliers, we aren't scratching our heads. We kind of know. Unfortunately, we hate to judge the book before the chapters are written, But when it's a rinse, wash, repeat, like y'all in the postseason, and well, James Harden, heaven forbid you do not get out of this opening round what the people who already have plenty of things to say about you, they're going to have it. Yeah, that's going to be content for days. Just saying, y'all. And speaking of another potential disappointment on the horizon, I would be remiss if I did not bring up those folks in the Motor City. You know, that team that likes to flex its muscle, I don't know, every 2 decades or so, and then their fans get to talking trash and acting tough like they've been there all along, but they have had their moments. They aren't taking anything away from what they've accomplished in the past. But there's more of this kind of Pistons that I'm thinking about. Where yes, you tried to be the bullies on the block all season long in the regular season, and is glad that the regular season matters to you. However, a Magic team which we had many questions about the way they stumbled into the playoffs, they've got you 3-1. 3-1 we know is not insurmountable. But what have you shown us in this series that would make us think you can actually come back? Not a lot, right? And, it just brings me to think the Pistons have to be one of the more perplexing teams. It's got a pedigree, for this very reason. Where when they showed up, I mean, okay, with the bad boys, but still, that first series with the Lakers, and then when Magic and Byron got hurt, and then, they went back to back. But when they kind of appeared out of nowhere and won that one and beat the Lakers again, what was that, like 04? And then you've had teams like this one that got everybody excited. And then we get to the postseason. And like I said, if the Cavs are a flat pancake, what the hell is this? FTINFX at gmail.com or call the hotline 525-0896. Love to hear from you. What do you think? I ain't picking on the Pistons. I'm just calling it the way I see it. They are the most mystifying team to me in the association. Yeah. In a weird way, for me at least. Okay, then we get the Steve Kerr. What am I going to say about Steve Kerr? How do you get to a point where a 4-time champion as a coach is on the verge of being ousted? And it's clear many people are kind of celebrating this in a lot of ways. I don't think he wants to go, but it is interesting how far we've come in the last 6 years. Where I think us as a sports populace, we've grown weary of the Greg Popoviches and Steve Kerrs and Mark Cuban types trying to lecture us about morality, politics, like we're not smart enough to make our own decisions. And it's like, after all, you're a fucking basketball coach. Where's the cuss jar at? But you're a basketball coach. And there's nothing wrong with that. But me as a tech guy, content creator, whatever the hell you want to call me. But I'm out here every time something happens because I have a platform to stand on. And I just, there's a certain fatigue there. But you would still think with his basketball, acumen, the Warriors might keep him around. Because obviously if he decides to leave San Francisco and still wants to coach, there'll be plenty of suitors out there. Given, as Colin Cowherd correctly said today, about 30% of the league is unwatchable most of the time when you're talking about expansion. But I just think it's really weird that we can get to a point where somebody that has 4 rings, and yes, there's a little fraying at the end, but there's one or two moves that could probably be made where they could be viable and be in the playoffs. I mean, they'd have to make a major move if they want to taste the champagne again. That's my thought. Okay. We're going to get more into this next point because I know we're running a little bit over for this segment. This Paige Becker's thing. You see her out there trying to flex. You can go to social media and all this stuff. And her saying, well, me and whatever her name, Miss Flood, which is her name, our relationship is none of y'all's business. Yes, Paige, but the fact is you are a public person. And as the top draft pick in last year's draft, and when your team takes your girlfriend as number one pick in this year's draft, it's hard for us not to ask questions and always ask questions. And especially with a team like yours that is not quite ascending yet. When things go south, before they go north, we're going to wonder, is there tension in your relationship? But it's inescapable. And this is where both can be true. And she kind of said it, but I don't like how arrogant and entitled she sounds. It's like you're bringing this to the doorstep. Especially when you're a team, as has been pointed out by many, could have drafted better players. But no, you want to have your girlfriend with you. And so, yeah, it isn't our business, but you've made it our business by being such a public couple. And when you were a public couple, just like we saw with Rapinoe and Sue Bird, it's going to elicit commentary, just like Tom and Giselle. That's how it be. All right, folks, we're crackling. When we return, we'll come up with something different. See you momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold, chilling like Kavicha Kravitz-Kelia. I will talk about that momentarily, let me tell you. But where are we going next? What are we going to call this segment? We're going to call this segment Mr. Irrelevant and Nowhere to Be Found. Now, speaking about this, episode 311 of Fox Dragon of Foxhole, this whole thing with McVay, Ty Simpson, and I spoke about the outrage. I think it kills me is this story, the drafts in the rearview mirror. Everybody's starting to talk about what's going to happen next with OTAs and June 1st cuts and all that kind of nonsense. And who did you get as an undrafted free agent? Sha-la-la this. But we're still somehow talking about this whole thing. I mean, so much to the point where you saw Sean McVay, he came on the herd, I think it was this morning. And you can see the irritation in his voice. I mean, one of the things I did like about this interview that he did with Colin was, I mean, I know I should be like everybody and pull other clips, but it's just like, doesn't matter. The thing is, he admitted that, yeah, okay, I would have maybe liked to have done a little bit more maneuvering, but we couldn't. And yeah, I met with the guy. I mean, you got all these other people, I don't have to mention who they are, but they just think he's being disingenuous. You know, it's almost if they forget about the whole battlefield mentality that happens in the draft room. Even if what you've seen on the silver screen is a pretty sensationalized, hard-boiled egg account of what really happens, but you get the sense that these folks who've covered the damn sport would know better. And why are they so cranky about a team that's probably going to be, injuries aside, going to be a playoff team and maybe a high seed at that? So why are we so out of whack, especially when we know Matt Stafford can't play forever? What, you're gonna take? You're gonna take the drunk Stetson Bennett? Rely on Jimmy G? It makes sense, right? And it's fair for people to think, well, maybe you could have waited or maybe traded down and got some more assets for another player because you're here to win now. That's all fine and dandy. But doesn't this squad have the reputation of being able to develop players in the lower rounds and other people's mistakes? I know they've got two people from my Commanders who we thought were not that good, and it turned out to be functional for them. So I think you folks just need to chill, or maybe you ain't got nothing else to bitch about. And then we did that cuss jar. Another takeaway from this past week. This guy, Diego Pavia, we'll call this Pavia's folly. You all see that draft room that he had with all the hats and, this guy's over the top. I mean, right? When he didn't get the Heisman, F the voters, F TV, bro, and all that other nonsense. And you go undrafted. And you go up again. I mean, it's easy why he didn't get drafted. And by the way, I think that's the first time somebody who's been invited to be at the Heisman ceremony, sitting in the chairs, they went undrafted. NFL will teach your ass a lesson. Mr. Fifth Rounder last year learned that too. And because the NFL, being the NFL, they can get away with such heavy-handed behavior with their Teflon coating. I love that, okay, so he goes undrafted, and there's a little pity party, and the Ravens bring him in. Sign a 3-year deal, apparently, which, what the F does that mean? As somebody said, you got to be part of the 90-year roster if you stick. And there's always room to have somebody. And that's why a lot of teams are like, why do they take a quarterback? Well, it's just why you have a quarterback room, especially in this league that's soon to go to 18 games, where at some point you're going to need somebody. And if you've got a vet, and they've got anything in the tank, they're going to get an offer. So to draft a young quarterback and kind of keep them around for 4 or 5 years makes a lot of sense. If this guy sticks or not, but it's worth kicking the tires on. You can't deny what he did at Vanderbilt, although being 8,000 years old and bullshitting your way to 2 extra years, but who's keeping score here? Right? When it comes to these blackball judges and the things that these kids can get away with to continue playing football. And best of luck to the kid. I mean, I don't think he's going to learn his lesson. As we know, we talked about his brother many times too. Whole thing seems to be out of whack. But who knows? Maybe this will be another good storyline besides what's going on down the way in Cleveland with who. And the funny thing about this too is I have to ask the question that many brought up this week. Now, this guy, in spite of his shenanigans that led to him not being drafted, if he had a Justin Herbert-like physique, it was even built like Mendoza, would we be having this conversation? If the guy was still an asshat. And my guess is probably not. If we have the fact that this guy says he's fine, he's my height, maybe. Seriously. Let me move on. Man, that was interesting seeing the whole thing with Ruben Bain. the very talented defensive stalwart from the U, all about the U, all about the U. See, I can't say all about the poo anymore because Mario has made the U respectable again. So I can't say all about the poo because they are legit. And this kid's legit. Did he get hosed in the draft because of the whole arms thing and possibly some lingering questions from the accident? I don't know, because this is a weird draft when you look at, the first round in terms of what people needed. And I think him landing in Tampa Bay, very good for him. But of course, leave it to the race baiting, hustling, weirdo jock culture that because I played at the U, my word matters. Michael Irvin said it was one of the worst character assassinations of how ESPN did it. I'm like thinking, well, other people have been in the green room waiting, and that look of an awkward look of why ain't somebody taking me yet? So I don't know about ESPN doing this kid dirty. He landed in a pretty damn good spot, I think, as far as getting with the Buccaneers. A great organization, defensive-minded coach Todd Bowles. I think it's going to be a wonderful pick up for that team. And I think it's a good move. I think that you can't argue with some of the moves that, Sonny Styles going to the Commanders. Right, the kid that from Ohio State that Dallas has, the guy in the secondary that everybody's crazy about, stuff like that. It's just, while this isn't touted as being a great draft, clearly teams that had needs. There wasn't too many, questionable reaches. So yeah, I don't think Bane got done dirty. It's just these things happen when you're in the microscope. There's a lot going on with this kid, and I'm sure that once he's balling, that chip that he showed on his shoulder, I said, "Uh-oh," but time will tell. The thing I got out of this draft, my man Mr. Lynch, and my man Kyle Shanahan, young Shanny, as we used to say. But he ain't so young now. And I brought this up many times recently. When it comes to those guys, they're kind of feeling the heat. You can see it, how testy they are on these press conferences. Which makes me say, translation! People are getting tired of, well, we've got a great organization, but what the hell do we have to show for it? We ain't won a ring since 1994. And, last time I checked, that still matters in the Bay Area. That you need to win. I'm not here like Coach JB and those guys on their platforms talking about their days are numbered. I don't know if Mr. York's got those kind of cojones based on what they've accomplished, but you have to wonder if we go through another cycle and they have not added another Lombardi to the collection. But you could definitely see it in, some of their media exchanges during the draft. Getting very testy. You just feel the tension in that building as far as the lack of not being able to bring it home. And that there's a certain, you got money and just paid Trent Williams. Do you know if Brock Purdy was the right thing? Maybe Mac Jones. The Ayuk situation, which is downright insanity. Yeah, we'll talk about that more on Friday. That's just silly. But yes, those two feeling the heat. Man, folks calling their record out. And I said, once again, I'm ahead of the curve on this one too. I am. Go back and check the tape. I've been saying this for a minute. I just don't know what you do with the 49ers unless, I guess, Jen, what's this, Denise, they just say, F it. No, anyways, you know who I'm talking about in terms of who owns the 49ers. It's interesting to see what happens if they don't have jewelry when we get to this time in 2027. Just saying, right? Overall, I thought that Steel City review, that's the draft being in Pittsburgh. It was cool. You know me, I'm gonna ogle so much about a draft experience. I think the locals turned out like you would, Pittsburgh being a great city that it is. I'm always going to wig out on U-mofos that travel long distances to see somebody's name, get called. But as they say, you do you. If that makes stars in your eyes, then I got stars in my eyes for you. Right? But it's still just pretty crazy. I thought, some of the reactions to some of the kids flexing in the outfits, whatever, or some of the guys crying, and some people say, stop being a B, you're about to be a millionaire, that kind of stuff. Hard not to be touched for the local kid, the Pittsburgh kid. Where did he go? Like Navy, gets drafted, comes out and dressed in the uniform. For all you patriots out there, just make you all smile. When you talk about those naughty patriots, we're talking about real patriots. So yeah, man, there was a lot of good scenes. Obviously, the moms who gotta show off with, hey, I might be 52, but I still hot as hell. The girlfriends and the sisters all getting in on the action, all trying to build their brands, or just like, oh, a lot of these guys think I'm hot too. So yeah, the side pieces. I mean, it's just a spectacle and it's fun, right? A little bit more subdued as time goes on. I'd be really curious to see what happens as the Commanders and DC host the next edition. I guess the Ravens will probably have a little piece of that too, given, it being the DMV. All right. We'll keep this cranking here. We'll be back with some more fun shortly. Peace, y'all. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Faithful host Kid Harlan here. AfterShoX 042, Season 2, Episode 10. Giving James Worthy all the love. Big game James. I can't believe I don't have a Worthy jersey. I've got a Coop one, but I don't have a Worthy one. Have to figure out a way to finagle one of those. Where are we going now? We're going to call this segment... When you sleep with dogs, a lot of times, most of the time, actually, you wake up with fleas. Well. If you follow sports, and I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably do, and we want to thank the folks who are checking this out for the first time. Tell your friends if you like it to tune in as well. We're only beginning to cook as far as this platform is concerned. Anyway, if you follow sports, you probably heard a little bit about this Brendan Sorsby kid, the center of yet another gambling scandal to be, I guess. I mean, this kid basically was at Cincinnati, because these kids have been getting paid, whatever the case may be. We went to Texas Tech. And there may be some shenanigans going on between those two schools. Still going to dig a little bit deeper. We'll definitely follow up with this on Friday. But as far as the dirt goes, this kid going into rehab for gambling addiction And folks say there's a lot of smoke as far as what went down at Cincinnati, and Cincinnati knew about it. And once again, you've got folks saying this is just the tip of the iceberg. Shit. If we had so many tips of the iceberg, the damn Titanic would have had 108 holes in it when it comes to gambling and sports right now. I mean, this is probably another sign of, how we got down this road, we know. Giving these kids bags and bags of money. And now that there's access to gambling, whether you're an adrenaline junkie or you just can't stay out of the gambling abyss, right? I'm not here to judge. I got my vices, and I lived in Vegas. I did some stupid stuff. Glad that it wasn't in this era. I wasn't there in this era, or I totally would be doomed. Well, I probably wouldn't be there because you can't get a good buffet in Vegas. You can't be poor in Vegas anymore. Be a poor college student, that is. I know we're getting sidetracked. But you know how we got down this wicked roll. It's just the proliferation of legalized gambling and giving these kids all this money, which all go down a parallel path of where we are in the mid-2020s. And let's not, when you see people get on the high horse about, we've got to save these kids. Oh, honey, child, that point's long gone. And that kind of always brings me back to a certain point. If you follow my podcast, I'm always talking about the adults in the room. And in this particular case, there was a point, and you can go back and check the tape. What I said, the adults advocated in this was going to be a nightmare. And the Sorsby story is, I don't know, it's almost like the poster child. When I sit there, it's almost like the poster of, see what happens when the adults don't step up and prevent chaos and anarchy from forming because you're too afraid or you're too greedy in your own aspirations in terms of glory, bags. I don't know. But the adults dropped the ball here. And now, I don't know what kind of scandal is going to come up. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. We do know with the mafia and other nefarious elements around, it could pop up anywhere and to what level. We're just already seeing the stuff with, Damon Jones pleading guilty, and they're going to put more charges on Rozier. Yeah. I don't know. But I do know this. There are folks in both industries, all three, who are sweating bullets in terms of the integrity of their games and what kind of shenanigans. Because that's the one thing they do not want in this era where they are making money hand over fist and the potential to make more. But you still have to convince us suckers out here in the public that it is on the level. And the more stories this pop up, because we don't even know what's underneath this gap. Like I said, I haven't had time to unpack and check out what's really happening here. I'll save that for a Friday up, and after I've listened to, what the experts are saying about this, because the initial word is like, okay, whatever. All right. Another big topic on campus this week. It is the 250th anniversary of this great country of ours, the United States of America. Proud to be an American. If you're not, sorry for you. I don't care what your deal is. I'm just saying, y'all. Well, I remember 50 years ago, the bicentennial. Remember all the cool, I was in Cub Scouts. They had the cool ass gear. All the cool red, white, and blue patches, all the sports teams. It was a cool time. Where am I going with this? I want to talk about the spirit of 76. But guess what? It ain't 1776 or 1976. This is more about the NCAA. who this week have finally cemented their plans to take the tournament from 68, or was it 60? Yeah, 68 teams. Now it's going to be 76. We adding 8 more teams to the mix, y'all. A lot of people not happy, salty about it. Saying the product's already watered down. Saying the first 4 was kind of bogus and a gimmick. And this is just more mediocrity to it. Well, you've heard my takes in the past. I get what they're saying just based on the lens of NIL, the transfer portal, and then how that's making those who got the big bags stronger and everybody else wondering how they could ever compete. Get all that stuff. But, man. See, I wanted to go to what was it, 96? And just make it a whole month-long thing. Trim down the unnecessary part of the regular season that y'all don't give a flying you don't want about to begin with. But yeah, it was really interesting to see the amount of pushback as far as going to 76 teams. And I see both sides of the coin, honey child. I do. I mean, I guess the problem, and I'm with this as well, I'm not being mealy mouth, but this is one of those nuanced conversations. In theory, you would hope that creating another 8 teams, we wouldn't have the question of Miami, Ohio, right? Or Akron, right? Some of these teams like are in the Mid-American Conference that had great seasons. But the truth be told, we know TV and we know the NC. What I thought Brian Bosworth would call it, the National Communist Crusade against athletes, whatever that t-shirt said. We know what Mr. Baker's band is all about. Well, we ain't done with that one. And there's just so much weird talk. I can't wait to talk about Mr. Silver and this tanking thing. I'm still unpacking that one as well. But the NCAA coming out this week and trying to shed some light on 5 to get 4, but not wanting to make it retroactive to this or not making it punitive. It's like, it's either 5 to get your 4 and get the hell out of Dodge and go get a life or go to the pros, or is it? Then we've got somebody else who's trying to sue the school. I think it's Mr. Gibbs, who plays for the Lions, saying that the Big Ten, NCAA, and I forget what network, they've been profiting off of my image. And we're going to have to see some judge to come down and level that nonsense. I mean, I just wish when it comes to this, we would get something in place and have a backbone. As I've said, many times, and I'll keep saying it because it keeps proving to be true. A little pain sometimes. And yes, there is some pain to you folks who've had the endless trough in the 2020s. And I'll blame you for crying. And you folks who missed out. Nobody knows the trough. I get it. We all get it. But sometimes life is effed that way. Is it not? And I know in this age of empowering our feelings and trying to right the wrongs via our truth, but sometimes there has to be some harsh realities so we can move forward, give other people opportunities, especially at that level, where the bags of cash are being passed around. We can't get to a point where it used to be, where it probably should be. I know you all don't want to hear that, but you're going to have unpaid interns and apprenticeships all over the place. And here, you get grub, you get room and board, medical care, and even aid to help you get your degree after you're done playing. So, yeah. But okay, we move past that. We can never come back to that level. We understand that. An ongoing thing. Can't wait to get more people in here and get their take on it. It'll be good stuff. Wild, wild summer ahead. I can tell you that. One more, though, which I think is interesting. And this is all about the NIL thing. It is interesting who decides to stay now and who might bolt, especially in basketball. In baseball, I guess, but when it comes to baseball, I don't know what kind of NIL money you're really pulling in. But it is interesting, a kid like, what's his name? Gilbert Arenas' son, in a bad accident and is now, back on the court doing well. He's staying another year. And I thought, that's cool. Not only because you can get the NIL back, but because you can. Because I'm sure you got the support of daddy and mommy and y'all. They made pretty good coin. Unless, well, he is part of some, shady stuff, pops. But still, you didn't go for a lack of growing up. And so you can sit back and hone your game, probably get a decent NIL bag, and then go to the NBA when you're ready. Which makes me wonder, Bronny, there was no need for you other than you and your dad's ego. Because you can't tell me you balling out in Tucson or, I don't know, stores wouldn't have been better for you than what this weird itinerant thing you do with the Lakers and the South Bay Lakers. I don't know. Yeah, and your brother. Don't even think about it. Especially in this era when you do come from means and you do come from an athletic family, why wouldn't you hang out? I was about to say something that I was going to stick my foot in my mouth, but I just said earlier in the year, I was talking about Oregon's Dante Moore. Why wouldn't you come back to be the dude on campus? You only get an opportunity to do that so often and have that kind of fun, and now you can get a big bag for it? Grab a fat hoopty? Man, I'm not the biggest fan of some of this stuff, but if you're all in that position, I know that's what I would be doing. All right. When we come back, we will do some parting shots and some probable salty takes. This you can be assured of. See you momentarily. All right, then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. AfterShoX 042. Giving James Worthy all the hype. Jackie Robinson as well. Am I leaving out anybody? Well, MacArthur Lane, but come on. Charlie Taylor, though. Ooh. HTTR. Okay, we've come to the part of AfterShoX, which we do our parting shots, maybe some salty takes or some keen insights. Just depends on how it goes. Here goes that. Okay, so before we did this taping, the first leg of the UEFA Champions League semifinals wrapped up, and what an incredible 24 hours we've seen. Starting with yesterday, PSG and Bayern Munich hooking up in one of the more epic matches you'll ever see at the Parc des Princes in Paris. What do they say? Sublime and all that other stuff. I ain't going there. I'm just going to tell you, in the end, a lot of spectacular play by some of the best talent playing in Europe, if not the world right now. Great for the fans of the beautiful game live. Pretty gut-wrenching if you're a fan of PSG, like I am, or if you're a fan of Bayern Munich. And even if you hate PSG or Bayern Munich, which big clubs that play in farmers' leagues, according to everybody else, there are a lot of haters out there. But it was magnificent. Can't wait to see what happens when they go back to Bayern next week. I'm already shivering in my boots. Told my friend of the show, Mr. Dave Williams, probably need a Xanax or two to get through it. And then we just had Atletico Madrid and Arsenal playing to a 1-1 draw in Madrid. So there's going to be a lot of entertainment there in the second leg. Who knows how that's going to play out when they go back to the Emirates. Hell yeah. Right? We got CCC on tap last night. Tigres gets the big win with the away goal at Geodis Park in Nashville. Tonight, Toluca comes to BMO Stadium in South LA to take on my LAFC. So, yeah, big stuff happening in CONCACAF. Other big things that we're going to try to get a better sense of in the episode, well, I guess what is that going to be, 312? Or 330? Yeah, 312. I'm flashing in the foxhole. This whole thing with the Whitecaps possibly being on the move, which has got everybody in Cascadia up in arms. Already saved the crew. Chants are on that we don't need another bullshit Vegas thing. They already have their chance. And I said, yeah, but when something needs to happen in Vegas, it does. And I've already seen the renderings. I mean, it would be a shame to break up that part of Cascadia. But stadium situation there, it's complicated. I don't really know all the ins and outs. I mean, I would like to think Mr. Garber can come up with a better solution. You give away franchises like Reese's Pieces, so no need to not find one. But I don't know if you can get a new crib built for them. I'm not sure what the economic situation is in Vancouver as far as, and even BC for that matter. You know, you tell me, ftinfx@gmail.com. Call the hotline, 541-525-0896. We'd love to hear from you. I know, it just would be a shame for the Caps to leave Vancouver and break up this great thing they have with the Sounders and the Tims. And they have such a great time. I mean, they get 20,000 people regularly. But when you have stadium issues, this shit can happen. Simple as that. Okay. You know, we're talking about soccer, but what I do, I don't know if I like, but it does intrigue me whenever I see elements of the beautiful game life creeping into the rest of the sporting world. I saw a couple of instances with that. One being Mr. Silver's kind of tanking plan where it's got some form of regulation for the draft. Not the real regulation, but it makes other people say, hey, we should maybe have real pro-reg to get rid of tanking and load management, all that stuff. Which I thought, wow, that's crazy that somehow, even in the soccer world, it's like the Hatfields and McCoys, but everybody else is like going, well, shit, maybe that isn't such a bad idea. And the firing managers before you get to May 1st. That's something you'd see in the beautiful guy life as well. A lack of patience. I mean, crap, you can't wait till at least Memorial Day to figure out if the ship needs to be scuttled and the crew thrown aboard. And that's what happened in Boston and Philadelphia. As both of those teams, as I pointed out last week on episode 312 or 311, both of those teams extremely disappointing to start 2027. And apparently the brass did as well. And these guys are out of work. So, yep, the beautiful game life being immolated everywhere. Okay. Sports and popular culture. And I don't know how I feel about this one. I mean, you've got Klay Thompson, multi-winner, as we were talking about the Warriors earlier, and Steve Kerr. Megan Thee Stallion. Yeah. And why this is bombarding my feed all week. I get with Klay, and I'm not dissing Megan Thee Stallion if that's your jam. Not mine, never would be. I just that ain't how we roll. You know, we're too busy being a hippie and all other kinds of hipster nonsense to be jamming like that, for better or worse. But it just makes me laugh because you have all these people, including Angel Reese, coming to our events, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, Klay's a cheat. And it's not like she's been some saint in her world, hence the name, how she came out with that she is Megan Thee Stallion. But to each his own. I just want to know, why would we even care? Why are we bombarded? And then someone says, well, celebrity couples don't always have to be white, Ken. You wouldn't be saying this if this was Travis Kelce and T Sizzle. You'd be applauding it. And I wouldn't be. T Sizzle, okay. And Kelce playing with the Chiefs. Now, if this was Curry hanging out with Megan Thee Stallion, it might be different. Or maybe not, I don't know. Maybe that's not fair. Okay. I guess we could say Kelce and Klay. That's part of the supporting cast. That's probably a fair. But Megan and Sizzle, nah, man, come on. And that's why they get the shade. Why we care about Klay. Because Klay and Travis are both long in the tooth. Probably past being difference makers in their relative positions. Oh boy. I don't even know what, that's just such a wormhole, but it's just like, yeah, I don't know why we even care about any of them. But the fact that it's just been beating down my feed, watching all these videos of people crying for her, and Angel Reese of all people, honey, if you need some advice, I'm here for you. Like Angel Reese has got advice to offer. Yeah. This whole thing with Brabes and Diana Rossini, how it has spawned in so many different directions. I know today, The Atlantic, I guess, had their staff in one of those kind of closed-door meetings, appraising them of what's going on and trying to be transparent. And I'm thinking to myself, how did this story get the legs that it did? Oh, we know why it did. You know, the pervs that we are and our ever-ending desire for salacious tidbits. Y'all don't want to admit it, but you know a lot of it may be true. And I ain't seeing all of you, because there's some of y'all that are just like, who the hell are they? I don't give a RAF. I get that. But it's just so funny, though, how parasitic it's become. Did you see that guy? Like, Braves is in the airport, and The guy's hounding him. TMZ, my homie who doesn't talk to me anymore for some reason. The Dodger scout. He's a TMZ guy. And he told me about the stuff as far as being a nuisance. But I never could picture him to the level of this guy that was bothering Braves in the airport. Anytime his wife Jen goes somewhere, people are like, tell a photo she's wearing the ring. And now we got 1,001 speculations. And where they're dragging, Diana, I can't even call her Dirty Diana anymore because she's being done so dirty. I'm not saying she's a sympathetic figure, but damn, y'all went hard on that carcass, man. I mean, in terms of trying to tear it to shreds. Forget about the mountain lions coming down and killing the pretty dogs in the SoCal hills right now. Y'all coming after Rossini. Man. Anyways, like I said, this story just has legs that are endless. Let's talk about Live. Canceling their upcoming event in New Orleans. What's that all about? I mean, you've got defenders. What's the guy who used to do soccer who got a gig? I mean, David Finnerty, but who's the guy that I'm thinking? Part of that was Arlo White. And I'm thinking to myself, you're telling us, all this talk it's just hype, speculation, blown out proportion. Then I see you're canceling an event in New Orleans. And everybody likes to go to the Big Easy, get their grub on, see the pretty people. As long as you ain't getting shot like homie did in Treme, you'll be all right. Ooh. But yeah, it's just, okay, where I'm getting with this, canceling this event, to me, is a sign that, it's almost like, right, it's like 1783 or 1781, and you're near Yorktown, and you can hear the taps in the background after Admiral Rochambeau did his thing, and the British had to capitulate, and that's why we do have the beautiful USA. I feel that way with a similar scene going on with Live, where they show up to the next event. There's going to be like a morning fog, the first tease, and you're going to hear taps because it's such a mockery, and I love what some of the people are saying. It wasn't a terrible idea, but in the end, it just doesn't really have any sustaining power. I don't know, but I've brought this up several times recently as well. I don't know what the afterworld looks like. We don't know if it's going to be punitive. We don't know of certain people that we've gotten a chance to see again. We probably won't. Pretty sure we won't be seeing Anthony Kim again, for starters. But yeah, all these has-beens that went for the bag of money, and bless your heart for going and chasing that bag, if that's what you're all about. But yeah, in the distant haze, man, I'm hearing taps. And this will be interesting. I had so much hope for a global circuit. But as the song goes, meet the old boss. Same as the old one. Okay. With that nod to the legendary Peter Dennis Townsend, born 5/19/45, we've reached the finish line of AfterShoX 042, doing the rump shake for my man James Worthy, Jackie Robinson, and Charlie Taylor, and any other Special 42 you can think of. Snaps twist along the way. Anyhow, We will see you probably Friday doing the audio show. Tune in. Tell your friends about that too. I'm going to try to do a live stream one of these nights with Mr. Big, so keep an eye out on that. So it can be bonus AfterShoX at any point. Definitely got some things working with our friend SJ, so keep an eye out for that. The scene as well. You know, the typical things. And we're still under construction, but doing some interesting stuff as far as the new look Foxhole, or FTI and FX Media look and all that kind of mumbo jumbo. Anyways, you'll see that as we slowly roll that out in the next couple of weeks. As always, enjoy the adult bevs. Enjoy some good eats. Enjoy good times with the people that matter the most. Avoid damn bracelets whenever you can, because that's going to be nothing but headaches. A lot of good sports on tonight. U.S. Open Cup, CONCACAF. I think a doubleheader NBA tonight. NHL playoffs, a smorgasbord for your hump day. So enjoy this. Get this content out probably by about 11:30 as always. So it's either going to be your late night or when your morning fun. Nonetheless, we will see you soon. Peace out.